Starting the stream. Let me pull up the link for it, and we'll be live here once it comes up. Here in a moment for the Steelers Depot live stream. Oh, need to mute myself. All right, that'll help. All right, 10 people in the chat already. Welcome to the Steelers Depot question and answer live stream for June 22nd. Dave Bryan is also here. Dave, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Happy Monday. It is 107 in Las Vegas
My
right now.
goodness, that's a seasonal 107 for you guys.
The actually it's been pretty nice out here, up until really about this week. If we've had some nice afternoon kind of winds, and I mean it's been hot, but it's just it hasn't been as hot as it normally is. But that's starting to change. We're right now, starting in the beginning of that 100 days of what we call summer, where a lot of days going to be over 100 degrees here. But it is indeed hot today.
Hey guys, thank you so much for being here. If you're new to the stream, we are here, Dave and I, for every hour on Monday, 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time, taking your Steelers questions, answering anything Pittsburgh Steelers related on your mind. Thank you, Brian, George, Jason are here. Dave, do you need the link or do you have it
I
pulled
got
up?
it. It
You
was
got it?
actually up.
Hey,
Yeah.
how about that?
Hello, everybody in the chat. Thanks for joining us, and stick around. We may have a giveaway later on tonight.
Well, we do, and I'll say it now because I put it in the title of this thing. We are giving away James Conner's book, Fear is a Choice, just dropped this past week. Thank you to their publisher, HarperCollins, for giving Steelers Depot some copies to hand out to you guys. So we'll have a trivia question based on a series Dave did recently, and first person to get the correct answer to that question will be able to get the book. Feel free to contact myself or Dave for details whenever that comes. So that'll happen around 7:30 Eastern time, about a half hour from now. You guys have a chance to win James Conner's book. John, thank you for being here. Brian starts things off and says, I want the Steelers to send Juju in a second to the Jets for Jamal Adams and bump Edmonds to Dimebacker. Don't think that's going to happen. It kind of sounds like Adams is going to stay put with the Jets, and if he goes anywhere, it's very, very unlikely to be in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, regardless. I mean, look, you'd be foolish not to like the play of Jamal Adams. I mean, he's a good box safety. He can do a lot of things. He can rush the quarterback. He's good at gets to run, good in coverage and all like that. The downside is though, is you just don't have the money to pay this guy. And yeah, if the Jets were to trade him, let's say to the Steelers, what would come with him would be a 3 point something million dollar, I think, cap hit for 2020. And yeah, the Steelers could probably finagle some things and kind of afford that. But the guy's already, talking about wanting a new contract, and any team that were to trade for him right now would be under the gun right away to probably give him a new contract. And even if they didn't, his 5th-year option, which was already picked up by the Jets for 2021, already comes with a $9 million plus price tag. And for sure before the start of the 2021 season, he's going to want a new deal if he doesn't want one before the beginning of this year. So, what would that new deal kind of look like for him? It would probably be at least 12 million average new money per year. And
The rumor is
probably
20 million.
yeah, well, yeah. Good luck with that. I mean, even if he was the highest paid safety at let's say what $15 million per season, I kind of laid out what that contract I think would look like when we talked on the podcast the other day. I mean, there's just no way the Steelers can afford that kind of cap hit and money going forward. Because they got a guy named T.J. Watt going to need a new deal. They're probably going to try to extend Heyward this offseason. You got Minkah Fitzpatrick in a couple years going to be do a deal. It's just, I mean, from a financial economical standpoint, it's just, as I like to say, impossible.
Yeah, I just can't see it happening for all the reasons you listed. There's no denying his talent, but I just don't see that happening in Pittsburgh the way that it happened with Minka, who's in the middle of his rookie deal on the early end of his rookie contract. Steeler Pastor says, Dave, hot here too, 102 degrees in high desert of California. You guys are crazy being out there out west.
It's 8% humidity.
Yeah, all that dry heat stuff you guys talk about. Triple digits, no thanks.
Look, I lived in Florida, so I know humidity, and that's part of the reason why we moved out this way is because 40 something years in the heat and humidity, and and don't let people kid you. It's not the Sunshine State all the time because it rains quite a bit in Florida, whereas out here it doesn't rain as much. But I do not regret moving out where we are now.
Trevin Gilly, listen to the podcast every day, and for putting the Q&A on there too, easier to listen and drive. Yes, Trevin, Dave is. I think I agree. Has made the good decision to put this stream as part of the podcast, so it'll go up later tonight. You think, or tomorrow,
Yeah,
something
as
like that.
long as everything, if you get me the video and yeah, I think by midnight tonight, and that would be the latest midnight Eastern. I think I can have all this up, video and from today, along with an audio version of this for the podcast listeners.
Yeah, so we will have this in the same place that you guys listen to the Terrible Podcast. Brian, you're very welcome for answering the question. Chad Weiss with a $2 super chat. No comment there, but thank you very much, Chad. Dave and I certainly appreciate it. James Arbacote, Cam is the ultimate professional. Love this interview. We can't let him walk. I think there is 0% chance Cam Hayward's going to play maybe anywhere ever other than Pittsburgh. And I think he's definitely going to get an extension by summer's end.
Yeah, look, everybody should know how I feel about that. I will be shocked if he does not have a new deal by the start of this regular season. The only reason I could see that maybe not happening is if this pandemic keeps going on, they don't have an idea what's going to happen. An agreement, maybe between the NFL and the NFLPA about what's going to happen, and maybe with some borrowing of cap dollars in the future year. But even if they don't have one done with him by the start of this regular season, and let's say the Rooney's, or let's say the organization pushes back the rule of not negotiating once the season starts. Potentially, you could have maybe a deal happen during the season, but at worst, and God forbid it has to happen that way. But he would get the franchise tag or a new deal prior to the franchise tag deadline next year, because obviously you want to have that franchise tag deadline or franchise tag available to you maybe for another player, maybe for a Juju or we'll see what happens with Bud Dupree or something along those lines. But I will be absolutely stunned if Cameron Heyward is not in a Steelers uniform in 2021.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like, since you mentioned pandemic, Steel City 102 asks a relevant question, something I wrote about this morning, which you see on screen right now. For Steelers Depot, are y'all getting worried that we may not get any football this year? I try not to watch the news, but I'm getting that sinking feeling, and that would really not be good. What's your thoughts? And that's what I wrote about today, is that the NFL wants to push on like normal, and I think there's obviously a lot of logistical challenges and safety challenges this year. But I think above all else, it's dealing with players who inevitably test positive. And we've already seen several players publicly and be known to test positive, whether that's Von Miller, Zeke, Kareem Jackson. Reportedly, 10 teams have had at least a positive case. And those numbers are not going to go down as teams come together for camp and the start of the season. So, how the NFL handles that is very tricky and could really alter the NFL landscape. Dave, are you getting any more increasing concerns about the future here?
Obviously you're going in the wrong direction when it comes with these positive tests, right?
Hmm.
That's number one. I mean, I'm not a doctor, man. I'm not even gonna, I'm a groin specialist. So, but no, in all honesty, it's not looking good right now. And more than anything, we still got what, around 90 days until the regular season starts. A little less than 90 days, but that's getting fewer by the day, obviously.
Hmm.
And you would think, I mean, at any time now. I mean, here we are, the 22nd of June. The league's going to have to make a decision, I think, by July 1st, as far as what's going to happen with maybe the first half of the preseason schedule. I fully expect them to cancel the first 2 weeks of the preseason here within the next 2 weeks, and then we'll see what happens there. But obviously it's not good with if you believe the latest reports in some of these states, and I think even Nevada has had an increase in some cases as well too. So yeah, I mean, look, the news isn't good, but I try to remain an optimist throughout all this as well too. So I still think there's going to be football. It might not include fans in it, but
Hmm.
I think that there'll be football.
Steel past there. If we're going to go after another safety, wouldn't a good free safety be a better option to give more options for fits? I think you want to find someone who could potentially play both, but I'm just trying to find any sort of good depth for either spot right now because there are question marks at both strong safety and free safety. So it's going to be slim pickings when it comes time to free agent market, or more likely a trade avenue. So you just kind of try to take some talent, and I think that's kind of the way you look at this thing right now.
And once again, we expect if they do go the route of maybe trading for a guy, it'll probably be a guy that maybe they've shown some past pre-draft interest in potentially, or a guy that we probably had linked to possibly the team liking ahead of that year's draft anyway. That player will probably be, 26, 27, 28 years old. That player will probably be more inclined to be free safety than strong safety, but you'd like them to be versatile and more. Another thing is you would expect that player to have some special teams capability with him as well too. So
Mhm.
all the things that you and I have talked about. The last 8 weeks when it comes to kind of the potential of that happening.
Yeah, thank you again, everybody who's been here in the chat. Mutated Genome with a $2 super chat for the tip jar. Thank you very much, my dude. Now, you've been here every single week. Again, we are giving away a copy of James Conner's book, Fear is a Choice. In about 20 minutes, I have a trivia question for that, so stay tuned for that. Back to the questions. George, this is a comment about Cam. We got to keep our own, can't afford him. That was a comment about Jamal Adams, I believe, actually, and I tend to agree with you. George Grant, thank you for being here. James Arbacote asks, are you concerned about the backup quarterback situation? I'm less confident in Mason Rudolph than the Steelers at least project publicly. What about you, Dave?
Look, I mean, it is what it is at this point. It's not going to change. And once again, as what Alex and I have talked about, all off season here is it's a huge, huge summer for Mason Rudolph. I think if there's any optimism whatsoever, all of it's tied to the brief playing time that he got against the Jets before he went down injured again there. Now, as part of an ongoing series I'm doing right now with Diontae Johnson, I'm going back and obviously Mason Rudolph was a part of a lot of those first half targets that Diontae had there. There were some timing issues. There was some holding on to the football, some decision issues with Mason, even in some of those early games there. However, there were some nice throws along the way on top of it there. But once again, I think all the optimism is tied to mostly how he performed in that game against the Jets. And quite honestly, I view the jury still being out on Mason overall. I'm not ready to throw the proverbial baby out with the bathwater right now. Obviously, did he have some extremely poor moments, more than just a few last season? Yeah, I personally thought there were times where he was just pushing way, way, way too hard. And look, I think everybody knew in that game against the Bengals the moment that the wheels completely came off when he just didn't have the confidence to make that throw to Diontae Johnson over on the left-hand side, went right in his feet. It was time to get him out there for a little while. And I did think that he rebounded nicely in that limited time against the Jets. And here's the thing: we won't know if it's the right decision that the Steelers made unless something happens to Ben.
Mm-hmm.
So, if we get to that, if we get to that, such a thing happening there, then we'll all sit back and we'll wait and see how Mason Rudolph can perform, and really his future with the organization will be riding on whatever playing time he gets, should he get any.
And of course, we'll see him in the preseason, assuming there is still something resembling a preseason. That's why you don't sign a veteran backup, because you need to see what you have in Rudolph, and he's got to get that opportunity to bounce back. And so this is a big year. I've said it is make or break for Mason Rudolph in 2020. Michael T-Well, LOL, every time a star player once traded, all the casual fans are like, oh, let's trade the bank to get him. Yeah, that's how it goes typically. But again, we've dismissed that idea pretty quickly. Hey, Brian. Hey, Kaylin. Thank you very much. Kaylin has a question. How worried are you guys about outside corner depth? With Joe Hayden now 31 years old and with Sutton Lane having little experience on the outside, could this position be an issue come December? I've wondered who the next man up would be if Hayden or Nelson were to go down. Would it be Lane? Would it be Sutton? Would they play it by ear? That is, I think, a bit of a valid concern, Kalen.
And I'll just tack on to that. I mean, you could go team by team around the NFL and pick 6, 7 position groups out, and you get past the starters, and you wonder what the quality of the depth will be at that position. And look, I mean, it's understandable with the Steelers at cornerback here, but I personally think best chance it would be a guy like Sutton.
Hmm.
There's no reason right now to believe it will be Lane. Maybe our mind will get changed during whatever preseason and training camp this team has. But right now, I would think Sutton would be the next guy off the bench should they need somebody on the outside there. And look, you obviously want Lane to grow into maybe to be the guy that'll take over. Maybe after Hayden leaves, maybe after this upcoming season here. But right now, yeah, I mean, here's the thing: rush and coverage go together.
Hmm.
So we know that the Steelers pass rush should be at least as good, if not better, than it was last year. So if you're able to do that, if you're able to do that with 4-man specifically, and makes the back end work a lot less harder.
Yeah, and we saw that as proof positive last season. And we'll see what happens with Lane in year two. I didn't love the pick coming out, but last year he was an underclassman, was pretty raw as a corner, so he could be a completely different Justin Lane this year, and that may make us feel all more comfortable about the depth at the position. Jesse Elwood, hey guys, longtime listener from Canada. Question is about Ulysses Gilbert. In the short time we have seen him, can you compare him to another player, and what would you guys say his ceiling would be? I don't have a great comp off the top of my head. I don't know if you do, Dave, but I think this guy,
I know less about him than you do, just
right?
from the sheer fact that, I mean, you've seen him more in training camp up close and personal, and all I've really seen him at is during the preseason play. Obviously he didn't play any defensive snaps during the regular season there. So all I have to go on is his college tape and his performances during last preseason there. So it's a better question for you to answer.
Yeah, I don't have a great comp, but I can answer the second question better. I think this guy can be a starting inside linebacker in the NFL and potentially a three-down linebacker. There's a ways to go for him to actually get to that point, but I think he has the traits and tools, the athleticism, the processing, his tackling was a lot better as a rookie last year than what I saw on his Akron tape. So I think he's got the baseline foundational elements to play on defense in the NFL. In terms of a comp, don't have a great one off the top of my head. We'll have to kind of see more of him, and obviously we'll get the chance to do so this summer. Brian, likelihood of Connor moving on after this year. Franchise, maybe I feel franchise tag may be used on Juju. Dave, what are your thoughts on those couple of questions?
I will be absolutely shocked if James Conner is back after this season. If he has a good season, which we all should hope that happens, something comparable to 2018 or better, then he's going to increase his own stock and be out. The only way you're going to keep him off the free agent market would be to franchise tag him. To me, that just with running backs, I wouldn't recommend such. I would doubt that he would sign any kind of a deal prior to free agency, knowing that he can test the market coming off of a good year. So, and the other side of the coin would be he doesn't have, has another kind of injury plagued season, has another season kind of statistically similar to what he had in 2019. At that point, you wonder, do you really even want him back at that point?
Hmm.
For a guy that still will probably command $2 to $3 million on maybe a low end there. So I'll be surprised if 2020 is not his last season.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Juju has a much, much better chance of receiving the franchise tag than Connor. It's hard to imagine scenarios where Connor returns after 2020, regardless of the type of year he has, really good or really poor. Mutated genome, if they push the start season back 1 month, how do you think that will affect the season overall? Fewer games, Super Bowl played in March. As Dave would say, these are questions above our pay grade. This is unprecedented, uncharted territory for the NFL. So I'm not sure. I know earlier in the offseason, the NFL was really adamant about trying to keep the Super Bowl in February. They would, I think, eliminate the Pro Bowl to kind of get rid of that buffer week there. The short answer is I don't know. If a month is pretty extreme shift for the NFL calendar, it probably would have to at that point. But those are just questions we don't have the answers to right now.
There you go, taking the Pro Bowl away from Las Vegas already, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure the 30,000 fans that'll be there will be heartbroken.
Hey, look, after losing the draft right now, this city,
Oh, you're getting it back in 2 years.
yeah, but I mean that's 2 years from now. They were really planning on it now,
I
and
know.
look, this place was hurting, and it was sort of a shot in the arm for it to get announced last week that the Pro Bowl would be here.
Hmm.
So but I mean you're right. That would be one of the options that they have. I'm just giving you a hard time there, but as far as any kind of advantage to kind of maybe tackle that side of the question there. Look, the longer this thing goes on and teams are not able to have their normal, you know, training camp, practices and obviously no OTAs or mandatory mini camp or anything like that, it really favors a team like the Steelers. Just from the
Hmm.
continuity aspect, you got what is it? 12 of the 15 defensive players that played more than 250 snaps last year will be back with the Steelers this year. You got a lot of guys on offense coming back here and all this season as well too. You look at from just the continuity from the coaching staff and the carryover from 2019. The longer teams aren't able to have a normal process, in my opinion, plays into the more favor of the more experienced teams, and that, of course, being the Steelers there. So if you do have kind of a truncated season, I would think that that would kind of fall into the advantage of the Steelers there.
Yeah, I think it would for all the reasons you mentioned, but it would be one for the history books. And like I wrote today on Steelers Depot, I think that we could see some really dramatic challenges for players testing positive, and how that could affect the desire and the possibility and odds of them playing a full 16 game season. At least for the NBA, NHL, they're just going through playoffs basically. Then they can get out and have a couple months off, the way the NFL had a couple months off, until they're closing in on the start of their football season. Michael Luther, what could Watt's deal look like? I know it's a ways out, but I'm not sure what a linebacker, what his talent would make. I mean, we're talking Khalil Mack money plus, and then I don't remember exactly what the details of that are, but it is $20 million plus average yearly value. Is that
I,
right around there?
I tell you, the meter's running on the cap.
Yeah. Longer you wait, it's not going to go down. It's only going to go up.
If this guy comes out and has the kind of season that we think he can have in 2020, I mean, you would have to right now. I mean, and it's not going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen at least this off season. It's just it doesn't fit what the Steelers normally do here. Regardless, I mean. He's right at that 19 to 20 million dollar value right now, I think.
I
You
agree.
know, and that's not even playing it down in 2020. So if he goes out and has the kind of season that most people expect him to have. I mean, you look at a guy like Khalil Mack. What's his average yearly value? Something like 23.5 or something like
Yeah,
that.
something like
I
that.
mean, we could be looking at this time next year, 20, I don't know, 25 million or more. I mean, it's so hard, not with having a full season ahead of you right now, and not knowing, and obviously not knowing what's going to happen this season
Hmm.
and the fallout and all like that. But I mean, I would think if you were to sign, get him to sign on a dotted line right now, which once again I don't think is going to happen. I mean that price tag's right there in that $18 to
Yeah.
$19 million per season range right now.
That is the floor. John Pennington, without a vaccine, do you guys think it's safe to play after seeing all the college kids getting infected again? These are questions above our pay grade, but as I wrote about, and you can check out the article on Steelers Depot, I think that there are a ton of challenges because we know that cases are spiking. We know that cases are spiking in the sports world, not just the NFL, but across all sports, and that number will continue to rise as players come together. And players who go in to test positive, they're going to have to quarantine. They're likely to miss time at some point, even if they're asymptomatic or have very mild symptoms. So it is going to be a season unlike any other, unfortunately.
Yeah, look, one of the bad things about what comes with blogging and writing about the Steelers on a daily basis and all is having to write about the stuff that's non-football related. And I hate some of the things that come along with that. I hate having to do, and this is definitely one of them at all. So I would just be guessing, trying to answer that, and I sit back like the rest of you. I read what comes in and try to make guesses off of that. Where I'm at right now is basically in the preseason right now, and as I said a little bit earlier there, I can't see how the I can't see how the preseason is not at least cut in half here very soon, and then that's our starting point, and then we'll just see how things kind of transpire, really week to week from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Brian, West Side Hawaii, says the money could work for Adams if you let Bud, Hayden, and Ben walk after a seven Super Bowl win this year. That is a lot of dominoes that have to fall. But let's get that seven Super Bowl first, and then I think we can revisit that conversation, Brian. James Arbico, what's your take on players kneeling before games. And this is a very sensitive topic and one that I think everyone has their opinion of, and probably no one's changing their mind of at this point. For me personally, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this topic, but I have no problem with it. Never had a problem with it. I'm fine with people peacefully protesting. The only thing I would say for people, I'm fine if you want to stand. I'm fine if you want to kneel. I mean, it's totally up to you. I think you just have to respect someone's decision. But I would just say that where it came from with Colin Kaepernick, at least remember, was Nate Boyer, who I believe was a Green Beret, had suggested to Kaepernick to kneel as his form of protest. So the origins of kneeling came from somebody who served in the military. So I think that's an important piece of information that has often gotten lost in the conversation. But that's my opinion. Your opinion may differ, and that's all right. Grant Humphrey, you want to go ahead, Dave?
If that's what they want to do as their form of protest, then have at it.
All right, there you go. Grant Humphrey, how often do you guys expect to see Devin Bush and UG3 this season on the field together? Not a whole lot unless there's an injury. I mean, that does bring up the larger question of Vince's role. We know he's going to play in base. How much do you think Vince is going to play outside of the Steelers' base 3-4? Dave, do you think that's he's going to play every nickel snap or no nickel snaps or something in between?
I kind of envision just in total, around a 500 snap season for him.
Okay.
I can't envision him, taking a huge amount of nickels. Maybe the start of the season and
Hmm.
all, but I just, nothing will let me envision him playing a large amount of nickel snaps as the season progresses.
Yeah, I mean, I've started to think that they're going to do something with Edmonds and try to roll him down because while I've been one of the bigger fans and champions of Vince Williams, it's hard to see them playing him like 700 snaps as an every down 3-4 nickel guy, knowing that they played Barron over him last year. And yeah, it's a good question. Maybe that means UG3 has some sort of role he carves out. Maybe that means Edmonds. Maybe they just play dime more like they did a couple years ago. I'm not sure. I don't think to start the year at least we'll see those guys on the field. I think they'll take an injury to make that happen. Couple more minutes.
And look, it's not going to be a popular opinion, I don't think, because Vince. Look, Vince, for where they got him and what he was coming out of Florida State and all. I mean, he really has in so many or in an instance beaten the odds. Really,
Absolutely.
I think when it comes to him, and I know this is probably not going to be popular, but I really see 2020 being the final season for Vince Williams with the Steelers.
His contract runs through 2020,
I think
next year.
I
Next year.
I think through next year.
Okay, yeah, we'll see. I mean, he is getting up there in age a little bit, and if other guys like UG3 could step up, then that may make him expendable. But I'm not as confident in that answer as you. I'm not saying that you are confident in that, but I'm just not where you're at right now. Let's see, a couple more minutes, and then we'll get to the trivia question for James Conner's book, Fear is a Choice, which, by the way, even if you are not the winner of our giveaway, you can buy anywhere where you buy books today. Amazon, I'm sure they have it, in any other bookstore. It's a great book. I've seen Connor promote it so much. I can't wait to read it myself, but definitely excited to read his story. RMC, when does the bomb drop on all these contracts being restructured over the past few years, or will it not be a problem in the future? That is the old kicking the can down the road. And are they going to pay the price for this, Dave, or are they able to still make it work?
Yeah, they all the quote unquote experts for years of saying, oh, the Steelers, going against the norm here, and they're setting themselves up for disasters here when it comes to all these restructures. And there was that big fear, I think 3 or 4 years ago. Look, there's constantly ways to massage the cap. The Steelers are the kings of kind of doing as such. Now, as long as you don't get into a situation, the only really time, look, it does obviously use up additional cap space when you restructure a guy to save cap space in the year prior to that. That's an obvious statement here. Now, look, they ran into issues with Woodley several years ago, and the big hurt is when you really have to just cut the guy despite all those restructures there because you just can't stay healthy. You saw it with Woodley. You saw it with Willie Cologne.
Hmm.
They usually take the calculated risk with these things here. If they deep down inside really thought it was going to be an issue with Woodley and Cologne, they wouldn't have done those many kind of back to back restructures, if you will. Uh, here's generally what happens with this thing, especially with these many kind of restructures this time. Now, obviously, we're in a lot different situation right now this year because of all that's going on with the pandemic and all, and really the uncertainty with the cap. I still think they're from everything I've studied and know that they're going to work out some sort of deal where the cap either stays flat in 2021 or goes up just not as much as it normally would. They'll have to work out some sort of stair step borrowing situation from future cap dollars. In my heart of hearts, I believe something along those lines will happen. Now, regardless, it's going to end up as is the case. Regardless of what happens with this, you're still going to see these middle salary guys, especially with the Steelers, lose their jobs.
Hmm.
Okay, the guys I just talked about, Vince Williams. Name another middle of the road guy
Yeah.
next season there. Those are the kind of guys that usually the backups with kind of those mid-range salaries don't usually last. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but Joe Hayden's going to be into the
Hmm.
conversation, I think,
Vance
next.
McDonald, somebody like that.
Vance McDonald is going to be in the conversation as maybe a cut next year. Don't write it down that Joe Hayden, but I think it's a guy that you have to look at, especially depending on how he plays in 2020. So that does happen. So am I worried about the Steelers being able to do business right now next season or next two seasons because of these restructures? Absolutely not. I mean, I'm so used to following it and covering it and all the doom and gloom that goes along with it every offseason. And here we are, and they're just fine. And here we
Right.
are in 2020 with a roster that I think should compete for a championship.
Yeah, there's been always a lot of fear mongering over the cap stuff. It's never been a significant issue before. This is obviously a much different year, so who knows what'll happen. But time will tell, and trust in Omar Khan because he's always kind of gotten this team through it. Jesse Elwood, I'm gunning for UG3 to be a star. I got his draft card for my PC. Hey, I'm excited for him. I'm really excited to see him this summer. All right, guys, it is 7:31. It is time to start our trivia question to give away James Conner's book. Let me pull up the question we were going to ask. First person to answer it correctly will be the winner. You can contact Dave, maybe email the podcast or something, and we'll get your information that way. So here is the question. Dave Bryan recently did a series on the longest plays of the last 50 years over on Steelers Depot. And it was a really cool series, a really great look back, and that got a lot of positive reviews. So the question is, who is the player on the receiving end of the Steelers' shortest, longest touchdown by regular season over the last 50 years? So who had the shortest?
Not touchdown, not touchdown.
Oh,
Just
not
the
touchdown.
shortest, longest play.
Okay, sorry, it said touchdown in the message. Yeah, shortest, longest play of the last 50 years. Whoever had the shortest one, which was answered in the series, but I'm sure if you guys followed along, you'll know the answer. You can try to look it up. I don't think you're able to look it up yourself, but first person to answer that will get James Conner's book, Fear is a Choice. Again, thank you to Harper Collins, the publisher, for that. And I think we already have a winner. It is Cordell Carter who has the correct answer of Dave Smith, and that was what, 49 yards? Correct, Dave?
You would ask me that now, wouldn't you?
I'm pretty sure it was four. I'll look it up here because since we have the technology to pull it up here, I think it was 49 yards back in whatever year that was.
70. Where is it here? It was
71.
1971, 49 yards. It was Bradshaw to Smith on Monday Night Football. It was the play where Smith looked like he was going to score a touchdown and inadvertently just threw the football up in the air as if he had scored at like the 2 or 3 yard line. The ball went into the end zone, ultimately out of the back of the end zone for a touchback there. So the correct answer is indeed Dave Smith. Unfortunately, Dave Smith passed away recently here as well too. A lot of people don't know that he was the player that wore number 88 before Lynn Swan came along. So
Yeah.
Dave Smith is the correct answer.
So congrats to Cordell Carter. Dave, how should Cordell get in touch with you? The email through the podcast or what?
Yeah, Cordell, send me an email, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. Just tell me that you were the winner of the James Conner book. Give me your mailing address, and that'll go out to you later on this week. And thanks for everybody for listening. And once again, thanks to Harper Collins publisher. Don't worry if you missed out. We'll probably have a couple more of these to give away next couple of Mondays, or or so
Hmm.
to some winners here.
And of course, you can buy the book. It is on shelves now. Fear is a Choice by James Conner, talking about his life experiences. All right, back to the Q&A part here. Brian, West Side of Hawaii says Sutton over Lane. I tend to agree, but we'll see how Lane looks this summer. Mike Cantwell says, I don't want anything. Just thank y'all for doing what y'all do. Best Steelers reports and coverage. Thank you very much, Mike. AJC, is there any time limit to sign all the rookies selected in the draft before any other team can sign them? There is a, at least in the old CBA, there was a deadline they had to sign by to play that season, but that it was such an impossibility that it's not going to be an issue. So they're all going to be signed before camp, right, Dave?
I don't what this year's draft picks. I
Yeah.
don't know if it will actually be before camp starts this year
Well,
because
okay, but
Uh,
yeah.
but they will be signed, sealed, and delivered very quickly.
Hmm.
The only thing is with there not being any off-season workouts or anything along those lines, they might have to get these guys into camp first and get them in, physicals or whatnot before they actually sign their
Hmm.
contract. Now, had none of this, had none of this pandemic or anything happened or like that, all these guys would already be signed by now.
Right. The good thing is for the CBA with the rookie slots, there's no negotiation really. It's minor stuff, some offset letting, which Seals even have a first round pick to worry about some of that stuff with. So even if they have to come into camp and before they do anything, they just get looked over and then sign once they're at camp and then they can go practice. It should be pretty quick and pretty seamless.
Yeah, and look, I mean, your earliest or really, your first draft pick here was what, second round,
Hmm.
and all. So you don't have that. You're not in that range where you're worried about the first round and the offset
Right.
language and all like. So this will all go really, really quick once the process starts. All these contracts are slotted already, and there's really not much to negotiate in these things. So it might not be by the start of training camp this year, but I would think within 3 or 4 days of training camp starting,
Hmm.
you should have all of these guys signed.
Wes Hickok jokingly says, "Hey Dave, should we trade for Adams?" I think you've gotten that question a lot
Stop,
on your
stop,
timeline.
you guys, stop with all these Adams questions. All right.
Russ Obenstein, what's up, Alex and Dave? I finally made it to the live stream. Thanks for being here, Russ. I appreciate that. I'm glad you're doing well. Hope you're feeling better with your back surgery that you had. Brian says,
Thanks, all
yeah,
new people
thank
in the
you to
chat.
everybody
Thank you.
in the chat. Hit the like button, Brian says. Yeah, if you hit the like button, that would be really appreciated. And Russ says, I think Adams would be a distraction. I don't know about a distraction, and I'll take the talent over any potential distraction there. It's just not going to happen for the financial reasons we talked about at the start of the podcast. Ivan Guerrero, you think we re-sign Juju next season? I think it starts with a tag, right, Dave?
I think it does start with the tag. I think that's going to be his saving grace. If he has a bounce back season similar to the one that he had in 2018, uh, then he's got himself set up perfectly that if Steelers want to retain him, and then personally, I think they should want to retain him if he has a season close to what he had. But even so, he would be foolish to not to maximize his value and at least force that tag
Hmm.
from the Steelers. And once he does that, he'll be in a lot better situation. He's a guy right now. People could say, well, just go ahead and sign him, for half the amount this offseason. I'm pretty sure with endorsements and everything that Juju's got going on right now, just as an outsider looking in, that he seems to be set up pretty decently financially right now. So in no way should he settle for a contract, say $9-10 million a season. He owes it to himself to have this bounce back, to attempt to have a bounce back season in 2020 and go from there. And the Steelers on the flip side set himself up just in case he should go elsewhere with the drafting of Chase Claypool this year as
Hmm.
well too here. So do I think there's a good chance that Juju, I think it's really 50-50 as we sit here right now. My gut tells me right now that maybe he won't be back in 2021, but we still got a full season to play here. I think if he does come back and he does have, 90 catches for, I don't know, 12, 13, 1400 yards, 6, 7, 8, 9 touchdowns, I think the Steelers really should think twice about, potentially putting a tag on him. But if he does return, I view it first coming via the tag.
Yeah, my gut says he will be back, so I guess we'll differ slightly there. But as you said, this season will dictate, what his future is in Pittsburgh. Wes says 13-3 first round bye Super Bowl. You heard it here first. All right, Wes, if that's what happens, you can claim it. A good question here from Playdead0112. Better rookie season, Shazier or Bush? Wasn't Shazier hurt in his rookie season? Missed some time, I think.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah,
I think did he bang a knee up or
something
something?
like that sounds right. So I'll go Devin Bush. Both had decent rookie years. I'll say Devin Bush because he played more and probably honestly played a little bit better than Shazier. But once Shazier was able was run defense improved, he took on block instead of going around blocks. He became the all star player that he is. Russ Obenstein, do you guys think they restructure Cam and get a free agent? No, they're going to do an extension with Cam. We think that's going to happen. In terms of free agency, I think they're basically done unless someone super minor comes in because there just frankly isn't really anyone worth signing in free agency right now. Brian, Below, Crowley, West Side Hawaii. Bigger Shazier fan than I am of Bush, but Bush had a better rookie year. So yeah, I agree with you there, Brian. Let me scroll through some questions. Wes says, I hope Joe Hayden doesn't get cut. If anything, I hope he retires if it comes to that. I mean, I know he's 31, but the dude was still playing. I think he had one of his best seasons last year. So Hayden's still showing he can play. Explore Your World 2019. Hey, I finally caught one of your live events, Alex. Good job, buddy. You always cover the Steelers quite well. Thank you very much. And Cordell, you're welcome. Congrats again. Explore Your World also says, I recently saw some comments about people thinking the Washington might round into the new number one receiver, but I must report that it is Diontae Johnson that has the skill set to get it done. Yeah, James is never going to be a number one, but he can definitely be an interesting vertical threat. I have a video up on my YouTube channel, be up on Steelers Depot tomorrow that kind of breaks down how he progressed from year one to year two. And do you see Deontay as a future number one, whatever that means to you, Dave?
It depends on what you want to define that as.
Well,
I
yeah,
mean,
whatever your definition of the word is.
yeah, look, I'm 5 games deep into a contextualization on him right now. The thing that really sticks out right from the get go when you go back through his 2019 tape was that short area separation,
Hmm.
and that's kind of the stuff that stuck out when you dug deep down into his Toledo tape as well too. His ability to get off the line and get that separation, and I think, and this is one thing that you and I talked about, I think a couple of times on the podcast now that I kind of view as a couple things really. Well, we saw this at Toledo. We saw his ability to kind of to make people miss after the catch, and his ability to not so much break tackles, but the ability to get that yards after the catch there is something nice. Now, I think the real bonus thing there that I don't think we really got to see a lot of in his Toledo tape that we did get to see in his rookie season with the Steelers was he was able to stack and get free over the top a couple of times there. So to me, whenever you have an X receiver that can give you that extra benefit of being able to get downhill, get vertical, and stack on the outside, to me that's a bonus when it comes, especially for a guy that primarily is going to play in the X position for you there. So uh, this is the year for him where you expect another jump from him, and you would like to see him start making some of those oh my
Hmm.
some of those oh my catches, kind that we were kind of dropping our mouths every week about Antonio Brown, and also you would like to see Johnson get a little bit more refined as an overall route runner. There's still I think we saw during his rookie season a little bit of that slipping problem still.
Yep.
I don't know if that's shoes. I don't know if if it just getting used to the NFL footing and the speed of the guy. I don't know what it is, but he did have a little bit of that problem at Toledo as well too. That little bit of that slipping problem there. But I mean everything from I think if you look at one of the clips today that I put up in that contextualization from Week 5 against the Ravens on one of those curl comeback routes there. He does a great job of getting at the top of his route, sitting down, and working back to the football. And man, anytime you have more than a yard and a half separation at the NFL level,
Yeah.
that's huge. And there, more than once already we've seen him have 2, 3, 4 yards of separation. So that's a good sign for him. And yeah, obviously he should be a guy that should be expected to take another nice jump in his second season.
Absolutely. For me, the things I want him to see him work on in year two is just overall ball security. He had 5 fumbles last year. That was by
Good
far
point.
the most of anyone on the team that was not a quarterback, and 5 of his 6 drops came over the middle. So hands were an issue coming out of Toledo, right? He dropped a couple. He's got smaller hands, so I just want to see him work on that consistency because he's gonna have to make some of those big plays over the middle sometimes.
And even remember that nice that nice out route that he caught the first pass from
Yeah, against
from
Baltimore.
Devlin Hodges. He put that on the ground.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah. So just overall ball security. The Bengals game, the against week 4, that first drive fumbles it, and that stuff that's certainly going to be costly. Mutated genome over under the number of positive gains bubble screens in a game. All right, that is a callback to last week. Good comment there, James Arbicott. I apologize, I missed your question earlier. I appreciate you re-asking. Can you share your experience at Latrobe? It's on my bucket list. Yeah, I'm super bummed there is no Latrobe this year, but it is just an awesome experience. For one, very few teams in the NFL still go off site. I know the Eagles used to do it, and that was really cool. And then they stopped doing that, and it's become more of a closed off thing these days. And so I think a lot of fans I've talked to who are Eagles fans have missed that. So Pittsburgh is just rarity, and that they're kind of the unicorn these days. And Latrobe is a beautiful place, the access, the ability to go for free if you would like, and be able to watch a Pittsburgh Steelers where Chuck Noll and Mean Joe and the Steel Curtain were at on the practice field every day. There's just a lot of history there that's really awe-inspiring, to be honest, and it's a great environment. So it's hard to really give you any one particular moment, but it is just beautiful in every sense of the word and every aspect of the event, and it's an awesome experience. So the team has been made the commitment to return in 2021, and I hope they honor that commitment. I expect that they will, because it's really special out there in St. Vincent. I hope you can go out there one day, Dave, because it's really cool. Russ Obenstein, great film in Claypool by Dave. He is going to be a beast. Yeah, Dave, you broke down Claypool every which way, and so yeah. I mean, what were your takeaways in some of your film study of Claypool?
Just my I go back to kind of my initial thought the first time I turned on the film on him, and I think it was, what did I do, like a 4 game contextualization on him way back before the draft. It was around Senior Bowl time, because I think that's, Daniel was one of the ones with you down at the Senior Bowl.
He talked to
Had
Chase. Yeah.
Right, he talked to Chase and Daniels. That's when it first came to light that, hey, Steelers might have some interest in this kid and all. So I think that kind of precipitated me. I think Chase might have been one of the first contextualizations that I did. Always go with those initial first
Right.
ones, Alex.
Yep.
Go with your first, the TJ Watt mock drafts. Always go with those first ones. Those you always circle back. But anyway, going back to that first contextualization, which was only like 3 or 4 games, I think the thing that stuck out to me the most was he down the field contested catcher. Okay, that was the biggest takeaway that I think that I got. Now, since then, since the draft, and obviously I went through and did every single target of his. He's fine as a blocker. He's fine working out of the slot. He's fine working. He played basically all over in that offense there. Now, the only question, and Alex and I have talked about this a couple times on the podcast here, really one of the things that I'm really interested to see with him during his rookie season is, can he stack NFL cornerbacks on the outside? Can he just pull a Mike Wallace, a Martavis Bryant on him, and just run by him? Because that's something that we really didn't get to see out of him at Notre Dame. It was just running past people there. So can he win deep? At the NFL level against NFL coverages. That's really one of the main questions that I have about him. And I think it's one of the questions maybe NFL teams had about him, which resulted in him really being kind of that second to third round prospect.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think we've talked about that a lot. Ability to stack, to and win vertical, because he's certainly going to be someone targeted vertically. And Washington, for example, had those issues his rookie year, and I think the biggest reason why he was better his sophomore year than his rookie year was because he was a much better technician, stronger, more physical, and was able to stack corners going vertical. So that's got to be the arc Claypool has to follow. They're obviously a little different builds. Claypool's the freakier athlete than James Washington, but that's got to be kind of the mold of what I'm looking for with Chase Claypool in year 1, and also whenever year 2 rolls around.
I tell you, Ben's not going to have a problem trying to throw one up in his direction down the sideline a couple of times,
That's for sure.
because this is a guy that's got good body control, especially in the red zone. That's a bright spot, obviously, with him. I think he's going to cut his teeth initially with the Steelers, in some red zone offensive looks and all like that. Slowly, probably start getting a little bit more work here and there. Maybe a big, what they call big slot candidate.
Hmm.
Later on in the season there. But on the flip side, I think they're going to put him in a couple of situations where they want to see if he can win from a Z outside position just to see if he can stack a corner or two.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because you want to move him around, but you haven't even been able to teach him one position. So I don't know if that's going to be stunted. It's obviously going to be some package stuff early, and that impact may not come in towards the latter half of his rookie year, like a lot of rookie receivers. AJ Brown of the Titans last year is a good example of that. Crystal Gay, Steelers cannot afford Adams. Adams desires to be in Dallas anyways. Yeah, I saw the clip of Adams. My guess is that he's going to end up in Dallas or stay with the Jets. Let's see. What are the rules of interference this season? Is it PI, sportsmanship, booth judge? I don't. They got rid of the review aspect of pass interference. Correct? Did they do that?
Yeah, they're not gonna have the reviews on that.
Okay. Well, big wreck there at Talladega. I'm watching the race there, and I think Blaney ended up winning it. I think it's just standard like 2 years ago with PI. Or is the judge of pass interference this year, if I'm not mistaken. Carl World, I live an hour away from where Edmonds grew up, so I want to be successful, but his major issue is ball skills. In my experience, I haven't seen too many examples of DBs getting better in that area. Yeah, I tend to agree with you, Carl. I don't want to discount it because he's a young guy, and we saw Bud Dupree. What happened to his breakout year? It happened later than what we hoped or expected, but I hear you. Usually with those guys, whether that's Minka, Joe Hayden, even Troy early on, I know I'm setting a high bar there. You can kind of just tell if they have ball skills early in their career. Even if they're not perfect players, you either kind of have it or you don't. It's hard to teach that. So Edmonds probably will never be that type of guy, but he's got to at least create a couple plays. My challenge for him this year was the high bar of one interception, one forced fumble, one fumble recovery. If he does that and plays solid like he did last year, I think it'll be a very successful season for Terrell Edmonds. Let's see here. Russ says, I think we're going to win 7 this year. I hope you are right, Russ. Brian asked, do you guys think we could use Chase Claypool in the same way that the Patriots used Aaron Hernandez? And if we could, would that even be a smart move? Not 100% sure of the comparison there. I guess you're kind of saying what Dave mentioned is that big slot move tight end. I don't think the Steelers envision him in that exact way, but I think, to the question of how will Claypool be used in year one, I think it will be just as a situational red zone package type player because it's going to be hard for him to hit the ground running because of all the time that he's missed and because of the difficult transition inherently there is for a receiver making the jump to the NFL.
You can use them as a big slot. I mean, you can,
Hmm.
look. I mean, Juju plays a lot of that kind of big slot. But I mean, as far as Aaron Hernandez was occasionally attached to the line of scrimmage as well too.
True.
And you're not going to use Chase Claypool that way.
Hmm. Yeah, Shields have already said he's a receiver. I know there was some talk about him being a tight end early in the pre-draft process, and he tested at the combine, and those talks quickly quieted down. And plus, they have Ebron and McDonald to kind of do those things anyway. That's why Ebron was signed, and that's why McDonald was traded for in the first place. Let's see. Explore Your World 2019, the 6th-round safety we drafted out of Maryland. That's Antoine Brooks Jr. When I watch his tape, I see a guy with a proper skill set to do what they wanted to do with Barron last year. Yeah, there's a potential for Brooks to eventually make that permanent switch to linebacker, though he is beginning his career as a strong safety.
And look, I mean, no thanks to the virus pandemic and all like that, this guy's head's going to be spinning.
Hmm.
When he hits camp there, and they're going to start him off at safety initially there, and see where it goes from there. There's just, I mean, yeah, I understand where he's coming from with the tape and maybe a potential, barren type player, but barring something happening which won't be a positive, we should not see any of that during his rookie season.
Right.
This is probably a conversation probably best suited to have a little over a year from now when they report to camp. Once again, the worst case, it's not, to me, it's not a good scenario to have him play any snaps on the defensive side of football in 2020.
Wholly agree, for sure. But special teams, I think he can make an impact there. He's a real energy tone setter, and that's a good place to start on special teams. Mark White, Dave, who remembers first, Deontay or Trayon, about their battle from college? I would like to see that battle if we could go to camp. What camp battle do you anticipate or would like to see? I'm not sure what the first part of that question means, Dave. Do you know what Mark's asking here?
No, I don't.
He's talking about
Is he
Bandy the
talking
corner?
about? Is he talking about the game between Miami? I guess
I think
Miami and
so.
Toledo, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And that was the one I think. Boy, I'm really testing myself
Deontay
here.
did well that game.
I thought so. He didn't have like 6 or 7 catches for bucks. I don't know.
Yeah.
I remember that, but you got to remember at the time I wasn't concentrating on who Bandy was.
Right.
Treyhan Bandy was there, so I would have to go back and re look at that to revisit the actual battle there, because back when I was watching that tape, I was focused on Johnson and not so much
Mhm.
the corner who he was going against
Yeah,
there.
and who knows how much they even face each other. Miami had a lot of good corners. They had Michael Jackson Jr., senior, whatever his name was, and Bandy, and they had a couple other DBs that were big down there that got drafted or got looks. So good question, but yeah, to the second question about the camp battle. I mean the nose tackle. Who's going to be your nose tackle is always an interesting question. Is it going to be Alu? Is it going to be McCullers? Could someone else there potentially make their case? Right tackle, core four and Banner. Big years for both guys. Both guys trying to make a claim to that starting right tackle job to secure a potential long term contract. Banner, especially working on that 1 year deal, admitting he's betting on himself right now, and how their position battle will go will dictate what happens to Matt Riley, at least it potentially could. So those are a couple of the big spots early on that I would love to see. Unfortunately, really won't get to know, and at least not to see in person, but hopefully get to check out in the preseason.
What did I tell you Johnson had against
You say
Miami?
6 for a buck something? I forget what number you had.
Actual numbers: 6 receptions, 119 yards, 2 touchdowns.
The things you remember.
Yeah,
Your wife would probably have a comment right now, but
yeah, yeah.
James.
No, look, you want to talk about one memory with an out like an elephant? That
Mhm.
one can tell you everything I did bad.
James Arbico, thank you so much for the $2 super chat, Dave, and I appreciate it. A couple more questions, wrap up the stream. Russ says, "This is my year to get to Latrobe. Do you guys think they have fans at Heinz?" I'm guessing no. Yeah, Russ, unfortunately, I would be shocked if there were fans for even one practice. And I think, as you said, Dave, Jerry Dulac even made a pass that they may not even have media there. I bet they'll have some sort of media there, but that tells you that fans are not going to be on the table.
Yeah, we were hoping we would be wrong throughout this thing, but
Yeah.
man, it's not looking good for that. I mean,
Nope.
I just keep my fingers crossed for for things to get better than what they are now. I've pretty much given up the hope of fans at training camp right
Yeah.
now.
Mark White, does Gray assume that Duran Gray have a shot at making the team for O line? He looks massive in a video from a month ago. I don't know if I've seen the video on that. He's got a shot, sure. I just think he's outside looking in right now. He was, I think, battling an injury last year. He was moving to guard last year, so it's probably unfair to paint what he did as a rookie, which was not much, and say that's what he's going to be a second year. But he's kind of in that jumbled mess for a potential last offensive line spot. James R. Bacote, do you think the Ravens Steeler rivalry is best in the NFL? I think it's up there. I mean, people could argue Bears Packers and Cowboys Eagles and Eagles Giants or whatever you want to do, but I know the rivalry isn't as strong as it was in the '09, 2010, right at the turn of the decade kind of era, but I still think it is one of the top two or three rivalries in the NFL today. Mark White, can you guys quickly discuss the safety from Michigan? Is he more free or strong? That's Tyreek Cannell. Matthew had written about him today. I thought he was more strong, but someone had told me he played more free at Michigan. So we'll see what he does in camp. Potentially could be a backup free safety option. All right, let's see any more questions here. Cameron Wright, well, I actually made it to the live. Hey, go Steelers. Thank you, Cameron. Go Steelers indeed. Let's see. Explore your world. Steelers D-line coach likes to rotate linemen, so you're going to see everybody with a helmet in the game at some point. Yeah, I mean that's not uncommon, and I'm sure we'll do that. Just the question is who's going to play the majority of the snaps, and those nose tackle, still I think unknown in terms of who's going to be the majority snap guy there. Greg Smiley, why isn't anybody talking about quarterbacks? I think we've spent a lot of time talking about quarterbacks, especially early in the chat and throughout the whole offseason. We've talked about, I think, quarterbacks. Greg. Let's see. There's nothing, with the exception of short yardage when you put in the colors, of course, but wouldn't that be a thing for the offense of line to have to deal with? I'm not quite sure what you're getting at their explore your world. All right, Dave. I think that's probably a good place to wrap up the live stream. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Dave, thank you so much for being here for the stream.
My pleasure. You do a good job of this thing, and we'll try to turn this thing around real quick. And for those that weren't didn't attend live, keep spreading the word about this on Monday nights. We're going to keep trying to do this thing at 7 p.m. Eastern time, and have some giveaways along the line as well too. And as usual, please make sure you're reading SteelersDepot.com and following us. You can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. You follow Alex at Alex_Kazora. You can email us, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. Once again, so grateful for all of you who checked in with us tonight.
Yeah, thank you guys. And so, yeah, if you want to go back and listen to this, or you came in late, or you missed it entirely, you can check it out wherever you hear our normal podcast. It'll be up a little bit later once I get everything sent over to Dave. And as always, we are here every Monday from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern. So thank you guys so much for being here, and we'll talk to you soon.
Peace and love. Peace and love.